Welcome to UFO Headline News with me, Heidi Hollis. Today is Wednesday, December 27th, 2017. I hope you all had a pleasant Christmas and blasting off with some UFO reports right from the start. We had a UFO sighting in Ponce de Leon, Florida, and this occurred December 13th, 2017. In brief, the witness states, black and white curved path object went from black to white faster than anything I know of. I'm ex-airforce. Okay. They go into more detail and say, was taking a video of a dashed chemtrail. When I played it back at normal speed, I thought I saw something. I went to slow motion. That's when I saw it plain as day. I am an ex-Air Force crew chief on the F-4 Phantom. I've never seen anything move this fast, making a turn as it did. When in slow motion, it seemed as though it was winged, or maybe it was doing barrel rolls. It would change from black to white. When you watch the video at 0.02 seconds, just above and to the right of center, you will see it become visible. Yikes. The next UFO sighting comes to us from Quesnel, British Columbia. This occurred on July 24th, 2017. In brief, they say, due to wildfires in my hometown, I evacuated to Dragon Lake near Quesnel, British Columbia. There I was, sitting in my car, when I observed the object. In more detail, the witness states, I was sitting in my car and observed a light in the sky that did not seem normal, like a satellite, so I watched it and took a picture first from inside my car, and then got out of the vehicle and took another picture, just as it went over the lake and beyond my vision. The object seemed to be traveling in a fairly straight line and made no noise whatsoever. I lost sight of the object when it went over nearby mountains. I really only got excited when it enlarged the picture first and noticed the shape and thought it was different from anything I had ever seen before. That's when I decided to try and get another picture. In the second picture, taken outside my vehicle, the object seemed to turn on its side before going out of sight. When I told friends about it, they said it was possibly a drone because of all the wildfires in the area. I would just really like to know if the object was a drone as suggested or what it might be. I had to enlarge the pictures a lot so that I could see what it was, and that makes me think it was quite high in the sky. Interesting. The next UFO sighting occurred in Charlotte, North Carolina. This occurred on December 6th of 2017. In brief, they say, picture of UFO taken headed north on 85 North in Charlotte, North Carolina. In more detail, they state, my girlfriend was taking pictures as usual. Probably takes on average 30 to 50 pictures a day of everything we do with our phones. So, December 6th, we were headed home from a visit to Charlotte, and we seen a black dot that appeared that was more than the dirt on my windshield. And before I could say, hey, look, she was telling me, hey, look, where's your phone? And we found the phone, and she snapped a few pictures. The picture was taken from front passenger seat of a pickup through the windshield. Boom, boom, boom. Alrighty, the next UFO sighting. This is a super duper blast from the past. And this is going to get interesting. UFO sighting in Great Britain. 1958, July 1st. While aboard the guided missile cruiser, the USS Canberra, in 1958, during the naval exercises in the English Channel, we saw a cigar-shaped metallic gray cigar hanging over us. This report says, filed at MUFON headquarters while on the phone with witness by field investigator L. Fletchner, December 13th of 2017. This report states, back in or around 1958, I was 18 years old and on the guided missile cruiser, the USS Canberra. We were doing naval exercises in the English Channel about 300 miles off the coast of France. 80 to 150 various naval craft from many different countries were participating in the exercise. I was on watch as a seaman and saw this large, gray, metallic, cigar-shaped craft come towards the ship through my binoculars. It was described as a fast-moving target, according to radar, traveling at 5,000 miles per hour. As the craft neared us, it slowed down and stopped over us. It was hovering at 35,000 feet, about 15 miles from us. It was as big as a football field. It stayed hovering over us. When we turned, it turned. This went on until my shift ended, for about an hour. Wow! The craft was metallic gray with no lights and no features on the skin of the craft. When I was relieved of duty, I got some refreshment and came back topside to watch it further. It had just left, going east towards Europe. When it first appeared, it seemed to have come from the tip of Scotland by way of Norway over the sea. Afterwards, I went to the bridge to look at the logbook to see what had been recorded about this incident. Nothing was mentioned about the UFO, and the handwriting and ink was identical to both separate listings in the logbook. Very unlikely, since the same person and pen would not have made both entries. The next day we pulled into port in England, and nothing was ever said about the incident. I was in the Navy from 1956 to 1976. Wow, so that's a long time. Interesting. Wow, that's one for the record books right there. I don't care what anybody says. All right, the next UFO sighting. This happened in Castle Rock, Colorado, December 7th, 2017. In brief, they state, 3 hovering stationary craft formed like a triangle, very distinct, bright. Then, one at a time, each took off super fast. In more detail, the witness states, I'm a truck driver. Ooh, truck drivers see a lot. And I was heading north on I-25 towards Denver. I was in between Castle Rock and Lone Tree when, in the pre-dawn light, I saw 3 bright and stationary lights, objects, just above the horizon, at approximately 30 to 35 degrees angle off to my northeast direction. These 3 objects were formed in a triangle pattern. The point, single object, pointing north, northeast, the bottom left of the south, southwest, and the third to the right was south, southeast. They were hovering, stationary, for approximately a full minute. I thought at first glance that they were helicopters, but definitely not. I drive up and down Highway 115, which parallels Fort Carson, and I see helicopters all the time, both day and night. That's not it. Since I drive this section of I-25 on a pretty regular basis, I am familiar with the surrounding area and the skylight. I knew these were not radio or cell towers at all. The objects appeared to be either triangle or even square in shape and outline. All 3 were emitting a very bright and constant and somewhat patterned white light. There is definitely a shape, an outline to these objects, and not just an orb of light, even in the pre-dawn light, so they were definitely close, like 0.1 mile or less away. Then, all of a sudden, The craft at the point of the triangle goes from stationary to zooming off to the northeast at a ridiculous speed and out of my sight in less than 1 second. Just a quick light trail was all I saw for that second. The other two objects remained stationary for another 1 to 2 seconds. Then they took off at the same ridiculous speed. The bottom right object shot off to the east-northeast. Again, out of my sight within a second. The other object, which delayed its departure for 1 to 2 seconds, on the bottom left of the formation shot off to the west-northwest. Before this third object disappeared from my sight, I observed it change direction and cut back to head north-northeast, as if to catch up with the other two craft. Wow! This change of direction was done at the same or close to the same speed as its straight line flight speed, and the change of direction was essentially made at an 80 to 90 degree angle. Now, unless this is or was a top secret experimental Air Force craft, technology may be going back to the days of, quote, Operation Paperclip, or reverse engineering from downed spacecraft found and covered up by the military and or government. I truly and honestly can say that what I saw was indeed a formation of UFOs. I was very excited to have had the chance to have experienced such a sight. What an opportunity. I am a true believer and honestly believe that we are not alone in the universe. What an arrogant belief from mankind to think we are the only intelligent life form out there in the entire universe and cosmos. Amen. The next UFO sighting. This happened in Gosport, England, December 12, 2017. In brief, they call it V-shaped dots of light. Then, in more detail, they state, at approximately 1:30 a.m. on December 12, 2017, I was sat on my windowsill, with the window wide open, smoking a cigarette. The sky was clear, and I was looking at the stars overhead. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw some movement, and was instantly shocked by what I was seeing. If I hadn't been looking at the exact place it happened, I would not have seen it. 5 to 7 gray dots of light in the shape of a V and similar to the pattern that birds fly in formation. They shot across the sky at great speed and left a very slight trail as a single shooting star would make, and disappeared just as quickly. I rooted to the spot and felt quite scared at what I'd just seen. There was no structure to the lights. They appeared to be camouflaged against the night sky. I don't really have any certain belief of UFOs, but I cannot think of any reasonable explanation to what I'd seen and cannot stop thinking about it. The event happened too quickly for me to even think about videoing it. Please tell me I'm not going mad and seeing things. It's totally freaked me out. Ooh, you're not crazy. Millions are seeing it. In fact, the United States Pentagon has invested millions into looking into it. They only admit to a few million in 5 years, but we know it's gone beyond that. Anyways, moving on. This is a ginormous, and I mean ginormous, or gigantic, enormous, report. I always encourage and tell people, give as much detail as you can so we can understand where you're coming from, what you've seen, what you've experienced, how you feel. And oh yes, proper English and dictation is very much appreciated for anybody who wants to read this stuff and know what you're saying. But no, we got giant run-on sentences and no capitalizing of things like I. So you might think at first it's an it, but it's an I. Okay, never mind. I'm done ranting. This is a big one, everybody. Take a breath and have a seat. All right, this UFO sighting comes From Manti, Utah, this occurred.
When we go out to eat, we never agree on where to go.
I want burgers!
Pizza.
Tacos it is.
The one thing we do agree on is we all want unlimited high-speed data. That's why we switched to Metro PCS.
Stop by Metro PCS with the whole family and get 4 lines with unlimited LTE data for just $100, period. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figure it out.
Coverage not available in some areas. Offers require porting of number not currently active on T-Mobile network. During congestion, the fraction of customers using more than 35 gigs per month may notice reduced speeds. Video streams at up to 40p. No tethering. See store for details and terms and conditions.
On December 9th, 2017. In brief, unusual formation of lights in the sky south of Manti, Utah. And in extreme detail, we begin. Many evenings ago, for a 2.5 to 3 mile walk for exercise in or near my hometown of Manti, Utah. On the evening in question, about 9:30 p.m., I was walking in a southwesterly direction on the old highway road about a half-mile south of the populated part of Manti. I was approaching an old but inhabited farmhouse in the vicinity. The old highway road at that position runs in a southwest direction to the west of and roughly parallel with U.S. Highway 89. See attached maps. The old farmhouse that I was approaching is located between U.S. 89 and the old highway. About 3/4 miles or so to the south of the old farmhouse, the old highway joins up with U.S. 89. On the night in question, I walked along the old highway road, starting from my home in town, until less than about 1/4 mile from where it joins up with US 89. At that point, I turned around and returned home by the same route. It was a very dark night with no moon, with the stars very brilliant in the clear sky with no clouds that I could tell. It was also very cold, and I had a warm coat on with a hat covering my ears. I could see the constellation Orion very brightly in the east, not too far above the horizon, and the 2 stars at the end of the Big Dipper, which line up with the North Star, were just to the east of the northerly direction. As I was walking to the southwest away from the town, the lights from the town and the nearby sheriff's building provided less and less light to see the road. Occasional headlights from passing vehicles on nearby US 89 at times lit up the road I was walking on, and also at times were a bit blinding. Walking near the old farmhouse was easier to see the road, as there was a bright light on a pole illuminating the area immediately to the south of the old farmhouse. When I was at the further parts south from the town, during my walk from the farmhouse, light no longer visible, the road at times was very difficult to see in the darkness, and often I had to navigate the center of the road by feeling with my feet the sloping of the surface away from the crown of the center part of the paving of the road. This sounds spooky. Somebody needed a flashlight. The starlight, however, did provide a faint outline of the edges of the road if I looked hard. As I was approaching the farmhouse, about 400 yards or so away, at the initial sighting point, I noticed some unusual lights up and the left to my view, or towards the east or southeast, and clearly above the closer foothills of the high mountains to the east of our valley. It took a moment or two of mental processing to realize what I was seeing was not like the usual sights I have seen so often in the night sky. When I first saw them is when they were closest, and the long string of these lights initially impressively filled the sky or my field of vision, until the mass of lights grew smaller as they moved towards the southwest. I am very familiar with aircraft lighting, red rotating beacons, white aircraft flashing strobe lights, etc. I used to fly in the Air Force. I am now a retired officer from the Air Force. Well, all right. And I am presently building a light aircraft. While many of the features of these lights that I was then seeing in the sky above to my left were similar to some features of aircraft lighting, the overall presentation was very unusual, and not at all like is so typically seen in the sky. There were from 25 to 30 points of light, apparently separate from each other, following each other in single file, as they moved towards the southwest. I tried to count them, but it was difficult to get an accurate count. They were not in a perfect straight line, as if they were all attached to some very long, straight pole, as there was some vertical alignment variation, but not much, from light to light, from an absolutely straight line, but still in a very organized single file. What was singular and unusual was that their spacing, one after the other, was very uniform. In my personal Air Force flying experience, when aircraft fly in formation, one is not just behind another, but somewhat to the side of the lead aircraft. These did not appear to be following any such formation, nor was it an echelon formation, with the aircraft behind slightly below the aircraft in front. The problem with aircraft flying directly behind each other is that the plane behind is subject to more turbulence from the prop, the jet engines, or the wings of an aircraft immediately in front. So, aircraft formation flights are not single file. The closeness of one craft to the one in front of the formation I saw seemed to present a danger of a wash or turbulence from the craft in front of the normal aircraft. I could see no silhouette of whatever shape these craft might have had, only lights. I tried to estimate the height and distance of these objects in the sky. The crispness or clarity of the lights for me made them far closer than when I see, for example, an airliner above 30,000 feet, which we see every night around here. Because of my interest in aviation, I sometimes calculate the height and speed of general aviation aircraft I see going by locally during the day, based on the apparent wingspan of the aircraft against the thickness of my thumb at arm's length. I also have a degree in engineering. There we go. Based on what I have observed and calculated seeing general aviation aircraft locally, these lights seem to be at a height of 2,500 to 5,000 feet above the ground here, which would make the MSL altitude to be from 8,000 to 11,500 feet. 11,500 feet. The altitude where I saw these lights is very close to 5,500 feet MSL. I could not tell if the path followed these lights prior to when I first saw them and came along and above the closer foothills of our eastern mountain range, or if their path brought them over the eastern mountain range of our valley. The eastern mountain range to our valley tops out most places at around 10,000 to 10,500 feet, and perhaps a tad higher in only a few places. Based on this kind of altitude, I would estimate their speed to be between 120 and 180 miles per hour. They did not apparently vary in speed, and their single file formation was unchanging from when I first saw this flight of craft or lights until they disappeared without changing direction at all to the southwest. I could be mistaken in my altitude and speed estimates, especially as I had no wingspan to measure against the thickness of my thumb at arm's length, but that is how it seemed. Based on the apparent closeness of the lights and their clarity and my previous estimates of light aircraft in the area, stated another way, these lights seem to have about the same apparent velocity or angular velocity as do the airliners above 30,000 feet, or perhaps a bit more apparent velocity, but not much. Clearly, they were much closer than airliners at altitude. More on the lights themselves, each of the lights had a red, pulsating light feature, virtually the same as what I know many civilian and military aircraft have, like a rotating beacon. There were some flashing white lights, basically the same as the white flashing strobe lights that aircraft have at night, but not every craft or light had the flashing white or strobe lights. This report goes on, I am not kidding you, for at least another page and a half. So, in order to allow for me to carry on tonight's and this week's momentum in the season of Christmas and the New Year, I wanted to be sure to fit this story in. But to finish reading that one, you guys just come on over to the site and you'll be able to click and read the rest of that one. So, pushed to safety by an angel. Back in 1980, Deb was a single mother with 2 infants in San Bernardino County, California. She occasionally needed reliable babysitters. Fortunately, her parents lived only about 30 miles away in Alta Loma. Deb would usually drop off the children at her parents' house, go do what she needed to do, then pick them up in the evening. On this night, Deb had retrieved her babies from her parents' place and was heading home. It was relatively late, about 11:30 p.m., and Deb was driving her old clunker. Among the car's many deficiencies, the gas gauge was broken, requiring her to guess when the old thing needed fuel. Occasionally, her guessing was off. She states, halfway home, the car started to putter, Deb remembers, and I realized I was on empty. I pulled off the first off-ramp I could, and it just happened to be one that was slightly uphill. Almost at the top of the exit, my car died, and there was absolutely nothing around except empty fields and distant lights at a truck stop about a quarter of a mile down the road. With no cars in sight and in pitch blackness other than her headlights, Deb didn't know what to do. The kids were asleep, and walking miles while carrying 2 kids in the middle of the night was not a good option. It was before cell phones as well, so she could not call for help. She states, I put my head on my steering wheel while saying a short and panicky prayer, she says. I hadn't even finished when I heard a few taps on my window. When she looked up, there stood a clean-cut looking young man who Deb estimated to be about 21 years old. He motioned for her to roll down her window. She says, I remember I was surprised, Deb says, but I wasn't even the slightest bit afraid, even though I normally would have been terrified. The young man was dressed well and had a faint smell of soap. He didn't ask if she needed help. Instead, he told her to put the car in neutral, and he would push her over that last small hill toward a place where she could get gas. She says, I thanked him and followed his instructions. The car started moving. I steered it toward the lights of the truck stop and turned around to yell thank you again to him. Deb says, he was so nice. My car kept moving, but the young man was nowhere in sight. I mean, this area was completely remote. There was absolutely nowhere he could have gone that quickly, even if there was somewhere to go. I don't even know where he came from to begin with. Deb's car continued to roll down the hill and to the truck stop. She was able to get the gas she needed, and the kids have remained sound asleep. I've always trusted in God to take care of us, but in relating that story many times to my children who are now 30 and 32, they know for a fact that angels do exist and are sent to us if we just believe. I always thought it was so amazing that we were sent someone who I would trust instinctively without question. Since that incident, I've come to believe that we probably encounter angels all the time and take for granted who they really are. I think they come in all shapes and sizes, young and old, and sometimes when we least expect them. Beautiful story. Well, once again, we've come to the end. Thank you for listening to UFO Headline News with me, Heidi Hollis. Be sure to check out ufoheadlinenews.com every single day. And also tune into my other weekly show, The Outlander, which is Fridays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. You could go to IRN.
When we go out to eat, we never agree on where to go.
I want burgers! Pizza.
Tacos it is.
The one thing we do agree on is we all want unlimited high-speed data. That's why we switched to Metro PCS.
Stop by Metro PCS with the whole family and get 4 lines with unlimited LTE data for just $100, period. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out.
Coverage not available in some areas. Offers require port of number not currently active on T-Mobile network. During congestion, the fraction of customers using more than 35 gigs per month may notice reduced speeds. Video streams at up to 40p. No tethering. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Pat to listen to the show live and chat with me and everybody else that's there. And catch my paranormal comic strip, The Outlanders. Direct links can be found at HeidiHollis.com, TheOutlandersComic.com, or just come to InceptionRadioNetwork.com. I want to thank you once again, and remember always to keep an open mind so you can stay informed and inspired.
Now's the time to track down the best deals at Cabela's after Christmas clearance. Hurry in and save up to 50% on a huge selection of footwear from national brands like Ariat, Timberland, Danner, and more. Get 50% off select Cabela's logo tees and caps for the family. And take 30% off select Cabela's rods, reels, combos, and tackle storage. Don't miss your chance to save big during Cabela's after Christmas clearance. Shop in store and at Cabela's.com.